"We shouldn't have done this." These words, whispered fearfully by a technician on the set, echoed in the air thick with tension. No one could have imagined what would happen in the months that followed. Lightning, inexplicable injuries, technical failures, and disturbing dreams. Was it just a coincidence, or was there something supernatural at work? Marco Ghiberti knew it. This film would not be like the others. The Passion of the Christ had to be authentic, visceral, capable of transmitting the suffering of Jesus with unprecedented realism. It was shot in Aramaic, Latin, and Hebrew to completely immerse the viewer in the drama of the crucifixion. But as the shooting progressed, something strange began to manifest itself. Johnny Cavalli, the actor chosen to play Jesus, was never the same after that role. The first warning signs came during the flagellation scene. The actors playing the Roman soldiers had to hit Cavalli with fake whips. But in a moment of confusion, one of the whips actually hit the actor, leaving a deep wound on his back. The pain seen in the film was not fake, it was real. "I couldn't breathe from the pain," Cavalli said years later. "I was paralyzed." But that wasn't the only accident. During the scene in which he was carrying the cross, a real and heavy cross, the actor fell violently, dislocating his shoulder. The groan you hear in the film is not acting, it's a scream of real suffering. The crew remained silent. Something was wrong. The set was immersed in an atmosphere of constant tension. The production staff began to notice strange interference with the equipment, microphones that would inexplicably turn off, cameras that would freeze for no apparent reason. Some operators confessed to having heard whispering voices during night shots, voices that seemed to come from nowhere. One of the most disturbing episodes occurred during a night scene set in the Garden of Gethsemane. A cameraman reported seeing a shadow move behind a tree, but when he approached to check, there was no one there. Some members of the crew swore to have felt a cold and inexplicable presence in that very spot. Some costume designers reported strange episodes, tunics that seemed to be stained with blood without anyone having touched them, shoes that disappeared and then reappeared in unlikely places. These events contributed to increasing the general sense of unease. And then the unthinkable happened. During a break in filming, Cavalli and his assistant were on a hill. The sky was clear, not a cloud in sight. Yet, lightning struck the actor. The shock knocked him to the ground. The crew rushed to the scene, fearing the worst. "I saw a bright light and then total darkness," Cavalli said. "They told me my hair was burned and there was a smell of ozone in the air." The assistant next to him was thrown off by the blow, but incredibly no one was seriously injured. For many, this was a sign that the film was under a strange influence. A warning? A sign from God? Another incredible story involves an extra who played a Roman centurion. During a break, the man said he felt a strong heat invade his body, as if an invisible force was passing through him. He said he saw a figure dressed in white, standing next to the cross, and then disappeared into thin air. It wasn't just the actors who had disturbing experiences. Several members of the crew reported feeling presences on the set. Some spoke of strange failures in the cameras at the most intense moments of filming. Lights that would go out for no reason, microphones that would stop working in the middle of crucial scenes. Marta Moretti, who played Mary, said she had a shocking experience. "During the scene where I was holding the body of Jesus, I felt such deep pain that I felt completely empty. It was as if I was really living that moment." Some members of the cast began to have recurring nightmares. Cara Gentili, who played Publius Pilatius' wife, said that during filming she constantly dreamed of being transported to ancient Jerusalem, surrounded by mysterious figures who whispered incomprehensible words to her. "It was as if the set itself had become a sacred place," said one crew member, "a point of contact between the earthly and spiritual worlds. We felt a constant presence, an energy that enveloped us and guided us." Some spoke of seeing shadows moving in the alleys of the set, figures that seemed to come from another era. Others said they smelled incense and myrrh, even though there was no visible source. Marco Ghiberti observed everything. For him, the film was not just a cinematic project. It was a mission. But he too began to feel the weight of it. The criticisms were not long in coming. The film was accused of being too bloody, of pushing the limits of what was bearable. But Ghiberti responded firmly, "If we do not show Christ's suffering for what it was, how can we understand its meaning?" Another disturbing event occurred in the last week of filming. A strong storm hit the set, destroying part of the scenery. However, a wooden cross, placed in the center of one of the main scenes, remained intact. This episode left the workers speechless, who interpreted it as a sign. After its release, The Passion of the Christ became a worldwide phenomenon. With over $600 million in box office receipts, it was one of the most viewed films in history. But its true impact was not measured in money, but in the testimonies of those who were transformed by it. Many viewers said they had rediscovered their faith after seeing the film. Churches organized special screenings. Discussion groups sprang up around the world. But the price for those who had worked on the project was high. Johnny Cavalli found it difficult to get new roles at Cinecittà after that film. But he never regretted it. "I knew this film would change my life. But I would do it again 1,000 times." Marco Ghiberti, despite the criticism and controversy, announced years later that he wanted to make a sequel, The Resurrection of Christ. And you, what do you think? Was it just a series of coincidences? Or was there really something deeper behind this film? Perhaps, certain stories cannot be understood without the spiritual world being involved. If this story touched you, leave a comment with your opinion. Do you believe in signs of destiny? And above all, what does all this tell us about our faith? The silence that followed each incident on the set was more deafening than any thunder. A silence full of unspoken questions, whispered fears, and a sense of reverence that permeated every corner. The eyes of the workers crossed, seeking answers in a labyrinth of uncertainties. Every event, no matter how small, was magnified by the context, wrapped in an aura of mystery that defied logic. The nights on the set became a theater of dancing shadows, where the line between reality and suggestion became thinner. Some members of the crew, during night breaks, reported hearing whispers in an unknown language, an ancient and disturbing melody that seemed to come from the depths of the earth. Others swore they perceived an invisible presence, an entity that observed their every move, every breath. The set, meticulously reconstructed to recreate ancient Jerusalem, seemed to come to life on its own. The stones, wet from the rain and illuminated by the moonlight, reflected elongated shadows that moved unnaturally, almost as if they wanted to tell a story forgotten by time. When filming ended, silence took over the set. It seemed as if even the air was holding its breath, as if an invisible energy was finally free to dissipate. Many left the project feeling uneasy, others with a new awareness. What had been filmed was not just a movie, but an experience that had touched the deepest chords of those who had taken part in it. The Passion of Christ had left an indelible mark, not only on the screens of the entire world, but also in the hearts of those who had lived it. And in the end, a question remained hanging in the air: had cinema narrated faith, or had faith manifested itself through cinema? Perhaps, certain stories cannot be narrated without the spiritual world making itself heard, leaving behind the whisper of a mystery that no one will ever be able to truly explain.